people who are very anxious and fearful, it's actually because they haven't expanded. So it's talking to them is harder.
I love it. And I love the word cocoon because it's very comfortable space. And to open that up, there's an element of pain, of discomfort, right? When you open it up to others or to whatever it is. And that is the invitation. Make it, go through a little bit of pain, right? Or discomfort in order to have that connection and to reach out to others.
Welcome to the Resilient Minds podcast, stories of grit, growth, and success. On this show, we focus on the real stories behind the success, the struggles, the resilience, and the courage it took to keep moving forward even when times got tough. My goal is to provide you with stories of hope and transformation, showing that no matter the challenges, there is a way forward, and you can find it. This is Resilient Minds.
Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Campbell, and I'm here with David Deighton, and he's an artist and he's on a mission to bridge communities through connection, but he does it through his art. I would love to hear your story. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on. This is a pleasure.
Absolutely. So I was super excited about hearing how you're doing this. How are you using art to connect people?
Well, what I'm doing right now is I use a very abstract way of going about things. I go in places where I feel in a comfortable space, where I'm as well. Let me take a step back. I go to national parks, for example, and I go to free speech areas, and I meet with strangers, and I ask them to answer non-confrontational political questions. And it's not the politics I'm interested in as much as the taboo, and um, and I find that that's a subject we refuse to talk about often, especially with people we disagree with. And so I want to kind of burst the bubble, get the conversations going so that we can build community in an aspect of finding something that we have in common with them. And that is not finding commonality in fact or opinion, but on an emotional level. If they're angry about something, I might be angry too, and I can tell them that. And so that's what I'll do. And I'll just make that as an example, as an invitation for others to do the same. And I'll do it verbally or through an art installation that kind of sparks the interest of the public. Because it's a very, you don't see abstract art at a national park usually. And that's what I do. I'll bring something kind of offbeat.
Yeah, well, when you say that, I hear there's two different versions of art. There's the
Mm,
abstract art, which you're definitely
mm.
going to have to explain to me what that is. My 12-year-old's an artist, so he educates me on the different hues of colors and stuff. All of the time, I have no idea. He educates me because I didn't know it was so detailed. So you have to explain that to me, the abstract art. But the other part is the kind of art that I work with as well, where you're connecting with people on a deeper, intimate level. And expressing our emotions is very artistic, and we can and connect with people at this deeper level even if we disagree, by just accepting and connecting and allowing the emotions to be there. It is an artistic expression, and I love that you're combining both of them. That really is beautiful.
That's very well put. I do see that all of our actions that are made with intention
Mm.
are artistic moments and expressions. And I also find that all of our actions, even non-actions, have a political repercussion to them. So to me, art and politics are linked together, as well as all of our in actions with intent. So I'm imbued with that all the time. And my journey is finding for myself commonalities with others and how that expresses itself, especially when I'm getting triggered by things that I don't want to hear or that I disagree with. How do I process that? And the things that I've come up with, I also share with others, and they share with others, which share with others, which
Mm.
works for me. Has a bit of a how do you say in English? It tumbles, it comes together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a snowball effect. It builds
Yes,
and
thank
it
you.
spreads. And then you put this in a form of art and you leave
Hmm.
it at the national for so how do you do that?
Well, we can all go. So any of us can go to the free speech areas that have been designated in on our public lands. And we often see people promoting their faith, for example, or a conservation movement in certain of these places. I decide to bring art, which is protected by the First Amendment in the United States, and to bring artwork to these places and have my interactions in a space where people don't expect it, and also uh, there's the contact with nature. So the tension is down. It's not like a street corner or when you're busy on your way to work. There's an effect from the natural world on the visitors, and I take advantage of that honestly because people are more chill when they go to a national park. Most of the time, I mean, if they're busy because they got 5 kids and they're running in different places, maybe I don't interact with them. That's not the best time. But
Right.
maybe later, and they tell me I'll come back later, and then we have a conversation or an interaction at that time. It's one
Mhm.
of I provide an invitation for others to uh, do the painful moves of interacting with strangers or people they disagree with, and showing them that we can do it non-confrontationally on a subject that nobody wants to talk about these days, as we're increasingly divided on the subject and polarized. I want to show that we can do these things, and that's what I do, and I express it with a variety of ways. And it doesn't have to be on in a national park. It could be in a park, in New York, in Paris, or whatever, because it's not just the U.S. that's facing a division and polarization. It's kind of a global thing these days, as we're on our digital devices. It's also an invitation to get off of our digital to kind of find an equilibrium. Do we spend more time online, or do
Hmm.
we spend more time in person with another? And if it's equal, we're good, or
Hmm.
more. But often the case is that we express our opinions and likes and hearts and dislikes and things online, but not in person with another. We want to be agreeable all the time. Uh, and so we repress things within us that maybe need to come out. And for that, you need somebody to listen. So that's what I offer. I offer a space where I actively listen to people's responses. And I try not to get triggered by what's being said, to be there and present in the moment with what they're saying, and then think of one thing I have in common, which is often an emotion, and
Hmm.
share that with them. For example, if they find they have all this stuff that they have to say about commies and libtards or whatever, and then I'll tell them, well, maybe I'm that libtard that you don't like so much, and they're like, well, you're different. You're not like those other people.
Hmm. Nice.
But there's one thing I agree with you, and then I'll show that bridge, and then conversations usually start from there because when we listen, we offer a moment where people feel trust, and we're building trust very quickly. Right?
Right.
It can be done very quickly when people like to open up, especially with a stranger. It's often easier to do with a stranger. Actually, if I could add in there, the idea is that practice with strangers
Hmm.
so that you can then do the same with somebody that you may have broken up with, a family member or estranged, a friend that you're no longer speaking to on a sensitive subject, so that you can do that because we have more vested in that relationship.
Right.
So I'm going the other way around it. Talk with strangers to practice so you can create bridges with the people that you've broken up with. I mean, sometimes there's very good reasons you broke up with him, and I'm not saying fix those. But sometimes, if it's just something of the values of opinion in politics, we can find commonalities, not on fact or opinion, but on emotion.
Right, absolutely. Even when there's very strong emotions. And I
Yes.
love what you're specifically trying to do is hold space regardless of what they're saying, non-judgmentally, acknowledge your own emotions. Don't try to hide them. And then you're still building a bridge by offering, well, this, we may not have that in common, but we do have this in common. Right? Did you experience things in your childhood that offered difficult conversations that were uncomfortable, that kind of fed into this vision for you?
Uh, well, it's a personal story. I grew up. I'm American born, raised in France. In the in the 80s, I was listening to radio, so I would have I like to go on the AM dial. I could hear Voice of America, the propaganda channel of the US, telling one story, and I could hear Radio TASS in English from the Soviet Union, and I would hear a different story on the same subject.
Yeah.
And that was also, it resonated with me because the story of what I was experiencing in France was very different than the one I would experience when I would visit my father. My parents were divorced. When I would go to the United States, and my father wanted me to be an all-American boy, which was very difficult to be, as I had this French existence, or the one of my travels, and so there was a divergence of opinion, and so we had just big arguments on the subject. He wanted to reform me, if you want, to show me the right path. When and I came to realize that we could build, maybe not on that information, but on the one of the commonalities that we had. So I think it started really early for me to try to connect with my father, and it didn't reciprocate. I had to make the effort for this to happen. So to give him the space to say what he had to say, listen in, and make an effort to make compromises. The compromise is one to listen, isn't it? So maybe it started a really early age, and I've done that ever since. I find that's like a pattern that it's been in my life. Yeah.
Right. What was the age that you started doing that at when you were listening to the different, to me it sounds like arguments on different radio stations.
Oh, I must have been. Uh, I moved when I was seven, probably 8 or 9. Started really early. So it's very uneven conversations to have a political conversation when your father, when you're that young. So, but it grew up from that. And my father went very far to, he was an early adopter uh, to listen to alt-right radio or conservative radio with Rush Limbaugh and all these things, Contract with America and all this. And I could see him progressing further and further to an extreme. Um, and he's no longer with us. But I feel like I've had peace with in our conversations years ago, before that. But it took a while. And I said, that took just way too long. How can somebody clear the way in a very short amount of time? And so right now, with a stranger, I get to a space where our conversation lasts 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And we enter a place of trust. Now, is with a stranger, so we don't have all the emotional luggage at that time.
Right.
And I can go on from there, right? And so we're talking now thousands of people that are now talking to other people, so that's really great. And
Yeah.
there's moments when my daughter and I are in public, and I'm exercise practicing this thing in public, and then somebody says, "Oh, I know what this is." And so there's a sense of validation, which is important when you put a lot of work into something. You like to, see that it bears fruit, right? And you're not just doing this because it sometimes feels like a drop of water in the ocean, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
it does have, I found, enormous power, as a democratic way of uh, of going beyond the forces that be. They're always telling us that we have our vote doesn't count, that the political powers are so strong that we can't influence them. When we actually can in our communities locally,
Mm.
just by connecting locally with that person we never spoke with. And and I say with, then too, spoke to, spoke
Yeah.
with, and find some place there. Yeah.
I absolutely love the way that you're talking about how our influence and our impact, just in the conversations that we have in our community and in our home, they absolutely can shift the direction of our country when it comes to politics. Because we
Mm,
absolutely can have an impact. But there is that responsibility where we have to have the hard conversations.
hmm.
Right. So normally I would ask somebody who's on the show, about hard things that they've done in their life, and it's stories of grit, growth, and success, and how you transform, and it's beautiful, turning pain into triumph. And to me, it sounds like you do this every single day. Like you
I
sit
try
in the
to.
grunge, right? Like
Yeah.
the grunge of a difficult conversation and the difficulty with putting in accepting your opinion and somebody else's at the same time, which is extremely difficult for the average person because it takes so much self-discipline to say, oh, no, I'm important, yes, but they're important too.
Yeah, that's very well put. But of course, it comes with a lot of pain.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to start it, right? If you want to see the outcome. Uh, I must admit that the first conversations I was having with strangers in parks, I just made up my own questions, and they were polarizing. So some people just they get triggered just by the questions I would ask. So I had a third party, some friends that were linguists and professors in communications, like help me, and in psychology too. Like, let's make this as neutral as possible.
Yeah.
And so I've been using just the same three questions, always the same, and use those, and people can just change the country to wherever they are. And the point is, you're listening
Yeah.
rather than reacting. Oh, yeah, this goes this way. Unless a question's asked to you, then it's your opportunity to say something. But often at the beginning, the conversations start with one person listening to the other, and you just give them the space to say what they have to say. And sometimes I have people that just cry because they've been wanting to say something for years and they can't because
Mhm.
they're in a marital relationship where they can't express their opinions, or they broke up with their one was a mom with her son. She's no longer talking to her son. Her son won't talk to her because they have different political opinions. One was Trump and one's a Democrat and whatever, and it wasn't working. And they're no longer talking. And so here is somebody about the same age that was listening to her, and she just started crying. Her husband came over, asking, what did you say to my wife? I was like, no, I haven't said anything. Actually, I haven't actually said anything. I
Yeah,
just
you
asked
just
three
listen.
questions. I'm listening. And she backed me up. And that happens.
Well,
That's happened before as well. Even on a podcast, it's happened because she was in Canada, and that was, yeah, that came out. Because I think there's a lot of like a somewhat traumatic event within us because we're not able to get things out. So it's something that we can do for others, something we do for our communities, and show by example as well. I mean, that's my experience, and people have been in agreement with me on it too. So I think I'm in the right direction. It's not an empirical research. It's not from an academic, or it's just by artistic experimentation, you know? Uh,
well, I look at things through a
mm,
neuroscience scopes, right? So when
okay.
you're talking about sharing information that you have and getting it into the brain of somebody else, we tend to try to push and force, but we have cognitive barriers. And if you want that cognitive barrier to drop, when you open up space for somebody and allow them to just speak, they're actually dropping those walls intentionally. Like their system will naturally, because they are verbally vomiting, like they're letting go of it and they're decompressing the stress in their body that holds all those walls up. So just by holding space and listening to somebody, they naturally will have their barriers go down. So whatever
Mm,
you say is way more likely to get into their brain instead of you having to force. And so even just saying it neutrally as, well, this is my opinion, it actually gets in there stronger after you've listened.
mm. So that works with my confirmation bias.
Yep. There you go. Add some science to it. I
Thank
bet
you.
that you
Mm.
have experienced a massive transformation through this process, huh?
Yes, big. Um, yeah, I was very much more of a misanthrope, not. For example, if I were hiking, I love to hike. I go off for not just a day. I'll go backcountry camping for days. But if I would see somebody else on the trail, I didn't want to talk to them, so I'd go off in the woods, and I didn't have to talk to someone or even say hi. Kind of a just not almost like a dislike of the actions of humanity with climate change and social injustice. I've seen, clear cutting, and then I've seen our mega freeways in the United States that distance us all, where there's nobody walking, talking to one another, where we're all inside of our little metal bubbles going around. And that just drives me nuts. And but then for 17 years, my wife and I ran an art business as well. So I had to talk to clients in order to sell stuff and artwork. That was tough. uh, and it felt fake and unreal. And but then suddenly, well, not suddenly, just with time, things evolved. And I started to relax a little bit and realize my own hypocrisy as I jump in an airplane and go off to another country and burn tons of fossil fuels, and things of this sort, and take my car and go this way and that way. It's other people shouldn't do that, but I was freely doing it, not seeing my own actions. So putting a mirror to myself.
Mm.
And then, my wife and I, we had a daughter. So then she was homeschooled for so many years. We would world school, go around the world. And then she decided to go to school. So here I am on the Parents Association and doing stuff and doing the volunteer work and all that, and talking to more people. And then this project really just brought me out from a really dark place
Mm.
to just talking to tons of people, a big weight off of my shoulders, just by practice, 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 because I was coming from such a low point of isolation. I mean, my wife and I also lived 6 years out in the New Mexico wilderness, if you want, several miles from for the next neighbor, with no water, no electricity, in like a handmade cabin, out at high elevation, and just beautiful, but really isolated. So we had that experience as well. And now I find myself, I was in Colombia a couple of weeks ago. I just loved in the cities, talking to people, so, having a cup of coffee and talking to the people next to me and having these interactions, which is easier there because not everybody's on their phone flipping through social media feeds. You can have these conversations because people aren't all glued on their phones. A lot of them are, I gotta say, around the world. But we have a particular acute case of, I don't know, what do you call it? Telephonitis or something? I don't know. What do you call it? What do you call it? Is there a
You should
scientific
call it
name for our
telephonitis.
dependence?
You should call it that. While you're saying that, I'm
Yeah.
thinking the way that what we were talking about a little bit earlier, where we were
Mm,
dropping our defenses, when we are
yeah.
so busy, constant with the doing and the tasks and scrolling on social media or moving from one screen to another screen to another screen, we actually never give our brain time to decompress. So
Mm,
if you do that, your system is so jammed up when you do talk to somebody it's actually not computing the same way because your system actually can't be calm and present. So with what you're doing is you're one holding space and you're encouraging yourself and others, right, to put the devices away, connect with real people, have real authentic conversations and build bridges. And I feel like this vision that you have or this mission that you're on is really able to transform the world if you keep doing what you're doing. I think it's beautiful,
mm.
helping people connect and be present and accept, right? You are building bridges.
Wow, that feels good. I mean, I can see it when I'm having conversations when we start looking down and we start coming in closer to one another and leading the ear, and or looking off in the distance at a mountain while we're talking, right? And then there's always that moment in the eye with that little click, like I'm there listening to
Mhm.
you. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
That little moment is like an epiphany, an aha moment. That's what I look for, not because I strive it, obviously.
Yeah.
I strive for it, but it's just beautiful to have that moment because we can all have that at un- only when we remain, well, if we can be present
Right.
for that, for in the moment for that person. Yeah, creating that space. Yeah, for me, it's all about creating spaces for these things to happen. And yeah, I use art installations. There's one that I like to share is about echo chambers and points of view. So there I am and people could see this on my YouTube channel. I put a museum stand with plexiglass around it.
Mm.
At the top, I could see in a museum and a statue in the middle. And this is on the Grand Canyon rim at the amphitheater, looking over the rim. And they're like,
Wow.
"What the heck is this thing?" And I can see that, so I come over, and then people say, "Oh, what is this?" They don't even know I'm the artist that put this together. I said, "Well, that's a representation of me, that statue in the middle, or you, or anyone, right? But I'm not interested in that statue. I'm interested in the box, and the box is like your point of view, your echo chamber." And when you're in the middle inside, you look outside, you think that thing is huge looking out in the Grand Canyon. It's much smaller than you think that it's much smaller than you think it is. There we are. And then I have in my hand like a spice jar, much smaller, and it has one of my daughter's Playmobiles in there, one of these Lego guys. And I could just fit it inside. And I said, well, look at this guy. He's got even a smaller echo chamber, right? I'm concerned about how these two interact offline. How does this person go visit inside of the echo chamber of the other? Is there space, or do you just hit? Or
Mhm.
is there some, do we even have an echo chamber? What the heck is it? All those things happen. They're asking themselves their own questions, right? And often I see their eyes going off in a direction like, huh, yeah, right? That's perfect for me. That's it, right there. They created a whole story from that interaction and thought that goes around that. They're probably going to go for a hike later on, or for a little walk and look at the Grand Canyon or whatever it is, and think about that for a second and wonder, how do I do that? Do I have one? How big is mine? What is an echo chamber? What is a point? All these things. And redefine that right there. That's our opening to others, is knowing what that looks like, trying to explore it. I very much love exploring the how points of view are expressed, not
Yeah.
just verbally, but internally and through space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really glad that you explained. I was going to ask you
Mm,
because we are coming up to the end of our time,
mm.
to explain what kind of art you would do, but you literally just did. It's like our brains are connected.
Right on.
But when you were describing that, what I hear is our self-imposed cocoons, right? So did I expand my cocoon and now I have more room for more ideas, more passion, more creativity, more love, joy, peace, all those wonderful things? Is there room for other people to come in? Is there more room for other people to express their opinions and for me to integrate that, right? Or is it teeny tiny? Am I even squished by it because
Mm,
there's just not enough room for more?
mm.
And so that when you were explaining that, I'm thinking that would be extremely difficult. And I see it all the time with people having conversations. One person who's expanded a little bit more, they usually have space. They're more free in their lives and they're peaceful and not so rigid and literally pent up. And then there's a lot of people who are very anxious and fearful. It's actually because they haven't expanded. So it's talking to them is harder.
I love it. And I love the word cocoon because it's very comfortable space. And to open that up, there's an element of pain, of discomfort, right? When you open it up to others or to whatever it is. And that is the invitation. Make it, go through a little bit of pain, right? Or discomfort in order to have that connection and to reach out to others. That's the very moment for that to happen, right? From that cocoon, open up, especially if it feels super tight.
Yeah.
Practice with strangers. Try it out. Yeah, no, just whenever the occasion comes up, is just to give it a go and see what happens, right?
Go
Because
hiking.
it's through practice that that cocoon's going to get bigger and more interesting, and it's going to have a wider view, and it's a lot of good stuff's going to come in. You're gonna be able to decorate that thing with a lot of cool stuff.
I love it. Thank you so much for that analogy, and I really appreciate your time today.
It was lovely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining. Your time and your focus are your most valuable currencies, so thank you for giving that to us today. Our guest contact information will be in the description below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But please, if you know someone who's struggling, stop right now and send this video to them. The struggle behind growth and success is real, and they need the support to make it, because the strongest minds are the ones that healed. So don't forget, lead louder, feel deeper, and stay resilient. Until next time, this is your host, Dr. Campbell, on the Resilient Minds podcast.